Good morning. Thanks for coming to my talk. First, I would like to give a little bit more of an introduction. So I am from Portland, Oregon. My favorite anime is My Neighbor Totoro. Yeah, great, good, some Totoro fans. Because I think if I were independently wealthy, I would spend my time riding around in a cat bus and sleeping in a tree and programming Python, of course. I am also a transgender man. I have recently started a Slack channel for trans guys and trans masculine people who work in tech. Interestingly, there's not very many of us in the technology community, so this is my reluctant attempt as a community organizer to try and create some space for us. So if that's something you might be interested in, or you know someone who might be interested in, I would love to talk to you. As Anne mentioned, I work at the Oregon Health and Science University, where I am a research software engineer in the computational biology department. A lot of my colleagues in Comp Bio use Python for image segmentation and machine learning. Regrettably, that's not part of my job, but I do have a pretty great job, which is developing a data management and analysis platform for cancer researchers and clinicians that are treating people that have very advanced stage cancers in specifically pancreatic cancer, breast cancer, prostate cancer, and AML, which is a type of lymphoma. So I'm honored to be able to contribute my technology skills back to the greater good in that way. My pronouns are he and him, if you are referring to me in conversation. And I have previously talked about MicroPython, both at PyDX, which was the local Portland Python conference in 2016, with my Internet of Cats project. And I also gave a IoT tutorial last year at PyCon. Both of those are available on my GitHub, which I'll show you at the end. So, enough about me. So we're here right now to talk about IoT communication. So there were some really excellent talks yesterday that talked about how to communicate with other humanoids. This is going to be more of a talk about how to communicate with our robot overlords. So for an IoT network to be a thing, right, we need the internet. There's the internet, okay? So here is a thing. This is the Nest thermostat. And let's say, honestly, I found this picture and I just wanted to incorporate it into my slide somehow, so let's just assume this is me and my super advanced piece of technology, and my mom spends her winters in Florida. She likes the house to be quite a bit warmer than my partner and I tend to keep it. So my mom's going to be arriving from Florida any minute now, so let me engage in a little bit of a dialogue with the Nest here. So I'm going to say, wow, look at the time. My elderly mom from Florida will be here soon. I wonder what the temperature is at the house. Hey, Nest, what's the temp? And the Nest says to me, it's 60 degrees, which is pretty cool, as in low in temperature. And I say, yikes, Mom's not going to like that at all. Can you turn it up to 78, please, because it's very important to be polite to the devices. And the Nest says, you betcha. So this was just kind of a funny conversation to talk about communication in general. So I am making a request of something, it's giving me information, I might have the ability to control that thing, so that's kind of like a high-level overview of just general communication. All right, end slide. So when I talk about technology, I try to do something regionally appropriate or kind of a funny, campy thing. So being that we're at Pie Cascades in the Pacific Northwest, I thought I would use the example of a winery, or a vineyard specifically. So let's imagine that we all have a vineyard, and being technology aficionados, we're like, how can we connect this vineyard to the internet to make our jobs easier? And of course, we're going to use MicroPython because Python is great. So we're going to have these little temperature sensors, and I've labeled the vines, vine 1, 2, 3, and 4. So we have, let's say, thousands of vines in our vineyard. And growing wine, or growing grapes is not something I know much about, but I do know that microclimates are very important. So we might want to set up a dashboard to see what the temperature is in different areas of our vineyard. And maybe, you know, we set up our temperature sensors, we go to sleep, we wake up in the morning, and we make ourselves a cup of Water Avenue Pinot Noir barrel-aged coffee, which you can actually buy in Portland because, of course, you can. And we're sipping our Pinot Noir coffee, looking at our dashboard, and we happen to notice that part of the vineyard is a little bit cool. And we're like, you know what? I'm going to press a button and turn on some heaters over there because my IoT sensors have told me that something cool is happening over there. Again, cool is in temperature. I might go a step further and say, you know what? I'm going to trust my network to go ahead and just connect to those heaters by themselves. So I'll say, you know, if you've noticed that the temperature is below a certain threshold, turn on some heaters nearby, and then when it comes up to another threshold, then turn them off. So that's just to give you a little background for what we're going to be talking about for our Internet of Things. So we're going to need an internet, which we're going to call the Vineyard Network. We're going to need our internet-connected temperature sensors, so that is going to be represented by the cloud with the thermometer and the humidity sign there. We're going to have our laptop that we're going to use to look at a dashboard of information that's coming from those sensors, and we're going to be talking about how we're going to relay that information from the sensors out in the Vineyard back to our computers where we can take a look at it. So this is a picture of the hardware that I actually have up here running. Hopefully it's running. So this is the ESP8266 microcontroller. So just a little aside, microprocessor, the thing in your computer, very expensive, very power hungry, very, very powerful, does a lot of processing things. A microcontroller, as the name kind of indicates, is more about controlling things. So it's very low power, it's very small, it's very inexpensive. So this unit cost me $3, for instance, and its primary task is to control other things. So in our case, it's going to be controlling the DHT11, which is digital humidity and temperature sensor. I think there's a pointer on this. Yes, so that little teal rectangle there is a DHT. And there's an LED down here that doesn't really do anything, but I didn't want to leave it unlabeled in case you were wondering that's an LED. And interestingly, you can see the antenna on the ESP. So this is a Wi-Fi connected microcontroller, so that means it's able to both broadcast a wireless network and connect to one. So with that said, for our Vineyard network, we're going to have an ESP, that microcontroller, that's going to be broadcasting the network. Not typically what you would do, but for the sake of showing how to do this in MicroPython, I want to use that as the access point. And then our Vine sensors are going to be also the ESP, but with that digital humidity and temperature sensor. We still have our laptop, and we're still going to be sending that information across. So now we're going to get into looking at some MicroPython, which looks a lot like regular Python. So MicroPython is a port of Python 3 that is optimized to run on microcontrollers. It has a subset of the regular Python libraries, and it also has some very specific libraries to do hardware functions, which we'll see in this talk. So the first hardware-related library that we're going to be using is the network module. So here I'm going to create an access point. So an access point is anything that's broadcasting a little local intranet like we are. So this, whoops, that's what I meant to do. In line 2, this whoops, that's not what there we are. Okay, sorry, back up. So this access point IF in line 2 here, that's access point interface, which we are going to create in line 3, and we're going to give it the name Vineyard Network, and then we're going to activate it. So you could think about this as you're setting up your home internet, you give it an SSID like I love cats, and then you turn it on. So we have our Vineyard Network broadcasting there. If we're going to set up our temperature sensors next, I have to remember the slides are right here, which is actually really great. So I can look at you and not the screen. So again, we're going to use the network module, and now we're going to make a station interface. And so station is basically anything that is enabled to connect up to a network. So in the last line here, line 4, we're going to connect to Vineyard Network and give it whatever password we've assigned. And so now our Vine sensors are online. So we have our Vineyard Network broadcasting. We are now connected to that network. The next thing we need to do is be able to measure the temperature and the humidity. So I'm using the example of humidity here. The only difference with temperature is down here in line 8 is you would use .temperature instead of humidity. But to walk through this line by line, so you can see MicroPython has kindly provided for us a DHT module. So the only thing I have to do to connect up to my DHT is basically create a object of type DHT11, and then I'm going to tell it what pin on the ESP I want it to be connected to. That's going to be the pin that says, hey, can you give me the temperature, and then it sends the information back. And then this looks just like regular Python. I have a function definition here. I'm passing in a parameter that is the poll time, so how frequently I'll be measuring the temperature. And in my control loop, I'm just going to hang out and say, all right, measure the temperature. I want the humidity. Just print out the humidity and tell me what it is, and then go to sleep again. So now we have the ability to actually take a measurement in our little sensors. So to go back to the Vineyard Network, we're set up now with our ESP as the access point. We have our vines connected to Vineyard Network, and they are also measuring the signals. We still have a laptop, and now we're going to talk about how we can actually get those signals across from the sensors to our dashboard on the laptop. And we're going to be doing that with a protocol called MQTT, which stands for Message Queuing Telemetry Transport. It's kind of a mouthful. This was developed by IBM in 1999 with the purpose of monitoring oil pipelines in the desert. So things that you can't easily get to, where you can just kind of stick sensors out there, you don't have a lot of power available to you. So MQTT is this very nice, lightweight protocol that uses a publish-subscribe model with a broker. So what that looks like is we have our sensors and we have our laptop, and then in the middle, we're going to have this broker. We're using the Mosquito broker in this example. Mosquito is a very cutely named and excellently iconified MQTT broker, which I think also has a really nice Python API, if I'm not mistaken. So what the broker is going to do is just kind of sit between and marshal the information between the connected devices. So I have a subscriber here, my dashboard. I'm going to say, all right, Mosquito, I would like to listen to any kind of messages you have about temperature in the vineyard. And the sensors are going to publish to the Mosquito broker and say, hey, I have information about the temperature and the humidity. And the broker is going to say, all right, well, I'm going to send that message out to my subscribers over topics. So the way that you would communicate between devices on an MQTT network is basically strings that are referred to as topics. So for instance, a top-level topic might be vineyard. So that would be anything that's broadcasting in the vineyard you would want to subscribe or publish to. You can then have subtopics. So we would be looking at the subtopic of humidity and temperature for our dashboard. You can have further subtopics, so I have like Vine 1, Vine 2, etc. And you'll notice these are just strings that will be passed when we look at the code. And you can imagine that it's very easy to add more publishers and subscribers with this model. There's no setting up of any kind of like an HTTP server. You do not have to set up any kind of configuration. If, let's say, we buy another 100 acres of Pinot Noir vines, and we have 500 more sensors that we want to put in, that's fine. We'll just then publish out to whatever vine number that is. And we can use wildcards as well if we're going to subscribe to these things. So let's say I'm just going to subscribe to all of the temperatures on the Vineyard Network. I would use this hash sign to do that. You can also use the plus sign as a wildcard kind of within that hierarchy. So in this case, I'd be saying, I want to listen to whatever information Vine 1 is sending. So this would give me both the temperature and the humidity. All right. So now that I've talked a little bit, like kind of a very high-level overview of MQTT and some basics, let's see how to do that in MicroPython. So again, MicroPython has provided for us, conveniently, a MQTT client library. So this, again, is going to be pretty simple. In line 2, we're going to set up an MQTT client and give it a unique ID. We're going to then give it the IP address where the broker is going to be listening, and then we're going to connect to that broker. And then in line 4 here, whoops, there we go. I'm going to publish out to my topic. So this is Vine 1, and I'm the temperature part of the sensor, so I'm going to send temperature, Vine 1, and then I'm going to send, let's say, a value of 15. So that would be publishing in MicroPython using MQTT. And then there's also subscribing. So if I were going to subscribe to messages, I would again create a MQTT client and connect to the broker. In the case of subscribing, I'm going to have to define a callback function. And that callback function is going to take the topic and the message and do something with them. So here I'm just printing it out. And so once I've defined my callback, I set the callback here. I'm going to subscribe. So remember from the topic slide, this means that I'm going to subscribe to all the temperatures in the vineyard here. And then I'm just going to wait. And this wait message command literally just does that. It waits. When it receives a message from the broker, it then would execute our callback function, which would print our temperature and humidity for us. So then let's take a look at our expanded measurement function. So remember, we looked at measure humidity before. Now we're going to look at measuring the humidity and passing the message along in MQTT. So again, we're going to be setting up our MQTT client. We've created an instance of DHT11. So we're going to connect to our broker, and then we're going to go through our measurement loop. This time, we'll take the humidity measurement, and then we'll generate a topic here using the client ID so we can identify where this information came from, and then I'm just going to say publish with whatever value I've gotten out of the humidity measurement and go back to sleep. This is presentation code. The actual code that I have running on these devices has a lot of try except in there in the case that you can't connect, or a technical problem I was having last night and this morning, which was the temperature sensor was not responding. So those would be like some production caveats. All right, so now it's demo time. This is good. I have about 15 minutes in here, so I have 10 minutes to do this. So this will be exciting. So what I have up here is I have the 2 temperature sensors, and I have the Vineyard Network running. So if I come over here, I can show you. Will this show up? Oh, maybe not. There we go. I am on the Vineyard Network, which is being broadcast by the middle doodad here. And let's see. If I come back over, need to find the cursor. There it is. All right, cool. So first I will show you. This is the web REPL, which is a really neat interface that MicroPython provides for us that you can connect wirelessly into the device and actually program it. So what you are looking at here is a Python REPL, so a Python prompt, that is running on one of these devices. So if I go up, hello Cascades, it will print out hello Cascades. So you can Python here. The other, so this one is the network interface. You should see over here, and we'll look at a much more friendly interface of the temperature and humidity values. You can't really see that they're moving because it's the same temperature and humidity because we're in a conference center and it's not very exciting. Maybe if I grab a hold of them, doesn't seem to be doing anything there. But these are the 2 different, oh, that one moved. So there was a 19 there. Oh, there we go, 31. See, this is the live. Yay, it's working. All right. Thank you. All right, so where is, and then I have more fun things to show you here, which is, all right, this is really cool. That's a graph of it. So remember, we're sipping our Pinot Noir barrel-aged coffee, checking out our vines, and seeing what's going on here. So let me also, it's a little bit weird because I have to drag it over to that. Okay, excellent. All right, so what I have here is a tool called MQTT Spy, which is a little Java thing. I apologize, I can't make it any bigger, so I'm sure in the back of the room it's really hard to read here. But I have subscribed to Vineyard temp /#. You can see down here that's picking up Vine 1 and Vine 2. And I've separately subscribed to humidity, and that's picking that up down here from Vine 1 and Vine 2. And so that's what these charts are, is showing you, these are the MQTT messages that are coming in from these sensors. The humidity one tends to be a little bit more exciting. That's a lot easier to modulate. Maybe if I, did something happen? Oh, there's a little movement. Okay, cool, yeah. So that's micro, oh, there we go, yay! Takes a little bit. Yeah, so that is, this is MicroPython running here live in front of you, measuring the temperature and humidity in our fictitious vineyard. And that's, let's see, I think that was kind of all I had for the demo piece. So, I'll go back to play. All right. So there was a demo, that was just some notes for me in case it didn't work. Summary. So we have learned a little bit about MicroPython, mostly how it has a lot of really cool stuff already embedded for you, so you don't have to reinvent any of this stuff, right? So we learned how to create a wireless access point using MicroPython. We've also learned how to connect up to a network using MicroPython to create station interfaces. We have learned how to use the DHT11 module to measure humidity and temperature, and we have learned how to use MQTT for message relay. There's a lot more on MQTT if you're interested. This is really just a kind of an introduction to that. And so I have references in my backup slides if you're interested. This is how you can get in touch with me. Please join Mastodon. That's me on Twitter too, is GIZM0_0, my GitHub and my email, and that is all I have. So.